quick meeting. For a quick meeting.
It's just crazy out there. Just wall to wall.
I've never been. I want to go though.
Go to 9/11 museum.
Sure,
Awesome.
yeah.
Everybody should do that. They really did.
All right, here we go. Here we go, everybody. We'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order on July 9th, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there anybody like to speak under public participation this evening? Okay, for the record, there is no public participation. We will start with item number 4, engineering services for Crawford Murphy and Tilley, work order number 10. Mr. Landers.
This work order that you have there in the packet is for the 2024 sidewalk projects. The engineering services. It includes design and construction.
And the amount?
I believe it is 300,000.
Is it-
Or I'm sorry, 33,000. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, questions for Mr. Landers? Ms. Rolfs?
So, well, in this then, you said this is just the planning and they
This
will
is the-
decide what streets?
We've already laid out sidewalks.
Okay,
I gave them a whole list of them, and then we've kind of narrowed it down. So this is be the design, to design the project, and then plus construction engineering, which is basically when the engineer comes in and oversees the construction part of the project.
so are these all throughout the city or is this one section of streets? Or-
The big focus is on the old hospital lot. So we're going to close the sidewalk in all the way around that lot, basically make a walking path. And then there's a couple targets downtown that didn't get hit last year that were on the list. One would be in front of Heartland Bank, a half a block there, from the alley to Sangamon Street on the north side of the street. And then the other section is on Chicago Street right across from the depot. And then there's a small short section on 10th Street.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Landers or discussion? Place this on the regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay, we'll place item number 4 on the regular agenda for next week. Okay, next up is item number 5, ordinance adopting amendment number 2 to appropriation ordinance, City of Lincoln, May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. You've all received a copy of that in your agenda packet. Those of you who may not be familiar with this, we do this every year. We take whatever's in the appropriation. In some cases, the lines exceed that which we had put in the original appropriation, of course, in the budget. So what we try to do there to even that out is within that sub-fund, and that's real important because you can't just take it from one sub-fund and move it to another, or one fund and move it to another. So, for example, like you see at the beginning there, liability insurance, we had more in that appropriation than we needed, but we didn't have enough in the property insurance, so we would move it to that line. Same thing with the workman's comp to compensable claims, because we had more compensable claims. I won't go through it line by line. I assume you've all read it or are able to read it. Fire department, it's kind of predictable. If you don't have enough firefighters, you're going to have more overtime. So we had more in the line for monthly salaries than we used because we didn't have all the positions filled for the entire year. As a result, we had to spend more on overtime. So to cover that, we've made that change. I think the rest of them pretty well speak for themselves. Some of them are as little as $10. The ones that are, larger, I mentioned there, the salaries, we move that around, and the insurance. The other thing you'll see with the ARPA grant, we did not know exactly how we were going to be spending that at the beginning of the year. We did not use it for the Chicago Street demolition this year. This past year, we may be using it in the future. We still don't know the outcome on that. And so, but we did use some of it for elevator improvements and for the we had some appropriated for elevator improvements, but not quite enough. And the same thing with dog park we added later in the year. I'd be happy to answer any questions on it if you have any.
Questions for Mr. Conzo? Okay, is that all for that topic, Mr. Conzo?
That's it, unless
Okay.
questions.
So we'll place item, Ms. Rolfs, you look like you have a question.
Well, well, I did have, I was looking at this $560,936. I think that's the biggest amount on this.
Where are you at? I'm sorry. What page are you on?
I'm on the second page.
Oh, yeah, let me explain that. I'm glad you brought that up. Part of this has to do with the fact that we never did get a complete set of amortization schedules from the state of Illinois on one of the sewer loans, and we still don't have it. So we'll be doing this again during the current year. With the Union Street, we did finally get that, and we have allocated it in the way that you see there. This amount was in the original appropriation, as you see there, unspecified, just loan principal and interest payment. When we were finally able to get the Union Street schedule, we were able to refine that number. The second loan for CSO payment, we still don't have that, but this is based on what we have received invoices and had to pay those during the year, but we don't have amortization schedule. So this is based on what those invoices were. I'm glad you brought that up. So the money was already in the appropriation, it just was unspecified as to how it would break down. If that answers.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for item number 5? Okay, place item number 5 on the regular agenda.
Yes.
Okay, we'll place item 5 on the regular agenda. Next up is item number 6, ordinance adopting appropriations for fiscal year 2024, 2025. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank every one of the department heads and the city clerk, especially, and the mayor for taking time to work on this, and it's also the committee that worked with us on the budget and worked again on this, Alderman Sanders, Alderman McClellan, for the time that they spent on it. I did send out an email with it. I think explained most of it. You see the things there that have an asterisk by them are things that are different than they were in the budget. There is a couple of additions since I sent that out. If you want to look on page 8 of the appropriation document, it lists them line by line under the Streets and Alleys Department. This is my error. Thank you to Superintendent Landers for pointing this out. That should be $55,000, not $50,000 in the appropriation for repairs for equipment, based on the projections that he has made since the adaptation of the budget. Also, in the American Rescue Plan, which is page 19, still working with Ms. Metelko, talked with her late today and will again tomorrow. And I'll keep you advised of how this changes, but it looks like what we've got left on the elevator improvements should be $19,070. City Hall roof, $80,710, and that would include some that we've already spent. Obviously, with that, it's money that we didn't spend last year on it, and so we carried it over into this year. I know you don't have last year's budget and appropriation there, but these things were budgeted, put in the appropriation for last year, but they were not completed. The elevator was mostly completed. The City Hall roof also mostly completed, but not entirely, so that would change that. We still have that Chicago Street building demolition in there. We still don't know whether or not that's going to be necessary. And the fire department rescue equipment, we now know the amount for that as well. With those increases, that's going to leave only about $46,274 to transfer to the general fund for economic development grants. Keep in mind that we had economic development grants before we ever had ARPA. And we paid them entirely out of the general fund. What this would do, it's going to reduce the amount we have from ARPA, assuming that these other expenditures are, you know, happen, the Chicago Street building demolition being probably the most up in the air or at this point, or questionable at this point. So we may have more than that. If we do, we can certainly use it for those grants, but that would limit what we'd be able to transfer. That's assuming also that, you know, everything, we still have about 3 of them out from last year where we've written the checks, but haven't issued them to the owners of the businesses because the projects aren't done. If those aren't done, then those checks would be voided, and that would add to the balance that we have in that account, if that makes sense. And those are the only changes since I sent this out to you. There could be more, as I think our city attorney will advise. This can be changed anytime up to the time that it's adopted. Is that correct, sir? That is correct, yes. Thank you. Do you have any questions on it? I think in the memo I explained that most of this is due to the vast dollar amount differences are proposals for street and sidewalk work, which I think is a real good idea. And also the sewer rebate project that has been approved by the council. If you want to go through with that, you're going to have to put it in the appropriation ordinance. So if you're opposed to this ordinance, then good luck finding a way to pay for that. In any case, those are the things that are the reasons why this is over and above the budget. We did budget or did appropriate more for gas because I think there's a good possibility you're going to see some very unpleasant things happen with the price of gasoline. And insurance, as I pointed out in that memo, also is kind of unpredictable. We know what our insurance, health insurance and the liability and property insurance, we know what they're going to be through the end of the calendar year. We don't know what they're going to be January 1st. And so we want to be prepared for, you know, what might happen there, because that's going to affect the last 4 months of this fiscal year. And that's, you know, it's always kind of up in the air, and you're just going to have to deal with that. That's about it, unless there's anything else.
Mr. Barrett?
With an election in November, you know, hopefully, you know, some gas prices might go down.
Yep, that's going to have a lot to do with that election. Will have a major impact on that, and I hope you're right.
Was there someone else had their hand up? Because I got a question. Okay. Can we go back to what you had made mention about the sewer rebate program?
Yes,
So is that in this appropriation or not?
it is.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was since it was passed.
I did talk with Superintendent Bounds about that, and he did include that in here, as well as a few other things. That's the major one, but there are other things that have come up, which he would be far more qualified to describe than I would be.
Okay, I think we're okay. I just needed that answer. Okay, any other questions on this ordinance? Place it on the regular agenda? Okay, we'll place item number 6 on the regular agenda. Thanks, Mr. Gonzo. Okay, next up is item number 7, establishing a limit for video gaming licenses. I can take the lead on this one. Also present from the Liquor Commission, Mr. Hoblet sits in on those meetings as well, so he can speak to that. Mr. Eimer was unavailable, so he wasn't present for that meeting, but I think we've talked about this before. So, as several of you are very well aware, I've taken a stance over the last couple of years to not sign any more video gaming licenses. I think that we're starting to see progress. We were at, and I put this in the memo, we were at about 240 in this city when I started. We're at about 200 now. So I went and did some research into this, and I provided that in the memo with other municipalities, tried to stay within central Illinois and around our population just to see in comparison how many video gaming terminals they had. The only other one on this list that was around us was Effingham. I don't have an explanation as to why they're more than we are. But if you look at Canton, they have 72, Chatham 57, Kiwani's still at 138, Macomb 63, Rantoul at 80. We're double and sometimes triple and quadruple some of these cities. And so that's why we've taken the stance is to present a better image on the main corridors of our community, because there's a lot of flags and signs and we get feedback on that. Not to say that there's a problem with video gaming. If that's your thing and you choose to do it in that respect, then that's your choice to do so as an adult. But we have a responsibility up here to ensure that the city is in such a manner that it's attractive to businesses, it's attractive to people that want to move here. And so there's a broader objective here in the position that I've taken. And I think it's starting to work. But this becomes a topic of contention when individuals call City Hall downstairs and they talk with Miss Landers about this topic. Some are more nice about it than others. She basically tells them, I'm not signing any more licenses. We've done this long enough that I think we've proven that we're moving in the right direction. I talked to the Liquor Commission about it the last time we were in there. We think that a comfortable number to get to start would be 175. I'd personally like to see it more around 150 or less. But that was the compromise we made, was 175 terminals for now. Can always be amended later. But the Liquor Commission's ask and my ask of the council is that you approve what's been recommended to you by the Liquor Commission and codify a limit in place so that there's no question. This is the direction of the city. This is the limit that we've established. And I think that puts those of us that are handling this process in a better position to manage. Mr. Hoblet, did you have?
Yeah, so the obvious question the council might have is that if we have 200 now, they're asking for a limit of 175.
Yep.
Well, there's a 25 differential there. The ones that have the gaming now would be grandfathered in. And then if those, say, a business close or moves something of that nature, then the one coming in would not be grandfathered. So that number over time would come down from the 200 to just the 175.
So that's a good point, and I want to elaborate a little bit on that. And I think, Ms. Ross, you have a question too. So I want to make sure that people understand that we are trying to be business friendly, and retention of our businesses is extremely important in this day and age, especially in our state. So the Liquor Commission has taken a stance, and I have gone along with that. I support that as well. That, let's say a business is in one location in the city, they have a better opportunity, they want to move to another location. On paper, number of terminals is not going up. It's basically status quo. So in those cases, we've made exceptions and allowed for location transfers. We've also been flexible in the respect of if a business is changing hands and ownership, as long as the new owner can go through the proper steps and they pass the background checks and they get their license from the state, we have allowed that as well, simply because the number's not going up in that case either. The goal is to get the number down. So I just want to be clear, we're not basically saying anti-video gaming business at all. We are working with the people that have chose to operate terminals in the city. But to put things into perspective, to Mr. Hoblet's point, yes, it's a 25 terminal gap. Individual, like a bar or restaurant, can have up to 6 terminals. And then like Beck's and truck stops can have up to 10. It has taken us, I would say, probably 24 months or greater, almost 3 years, to get it down to 40, the 40 that we've come down from 240 to 200. We do have a waiting list that we put people on downstairs, but we're very clear with them that it could be a very long time, depending on how things go. So that's a lot of the background and information that we've put into place up until now for you to consider, in case you should have questions about business retention and things of that nature. Ms. Rolfs.
Do you know if there has ever been any studies done on the number of terminals in a community as far as the profitability for the owners that run them? Because it seems as if though you at some point reach the marginal utility is not there, people cannot make as much money. If there's more gaming machines, then that means that, you know, people, either a lot of people are using them or some are not being used as much as they could be.
Yeah, so the revenue report, we haven't done a study here at the city. I haven't looked into whether there was a study done or not, but the revenue of the city, Mr. Conzo can keep us honest, but it's pretty much plateaued. It's not going down. It's not going up. So I think what you're alluding to is there's one big pie and everybody, you know, the more terminals, the less pie the people that participate get, right?
Right.
There have been some businesses that have decided to turn their terminals back in. Very few. I would say it's probably less than 10 that have chosen to do that. Because in most cases, these terminals are in locations where it's not the primary source of income. It's a secondary. I've had businesses come to me and say, I'll give you an example, true story. This happened maybe 2 years ago. They said, we'd like to come to town. We'd like to open up the best steakhouse that you've ever seen. It will compete with any that you have in your community. And I go, that's great. We would love to have you. What can we do to help you? We need video gaming terminals. And I said, but the restaurants and businesses that we have here that this community loves and supports continuously, they don't have them. So why do you need them to support it? And, you know, being just raw and blunt about it, I said, maybe you need to perhaps look at your business model. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody. Again, we want people to come to town, but we've just heard enough feedback from individuals that I think enough's enough. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
I just wondered because I did try to look up to see if there had been any research done. When you look at some of these numbers and the populations within the community, you know, we're pretty high. And why is that we have apparently the need and other communities don't?
My opinion, it's that the limit was not put in place and that there was a philosophy at one time of the strong will survive. And I'm not saying that that philosophy doesn't have some truth to it, but it's not bringing the numbers to an acceptable level, in my opinion. And so we worked on that premise. We've seen that it could be decades. I don't know if the trend will continue to go up, but you know, I think it's our responsibility to put some healthy limits in place. And I think what blew my mind, and I don't think I put it in this memo, but when I first started this approach, I think we were at something like 54 or 55, one terminal in our community for every 55 people that were old enough to gamble. And that's when I'm like, we really need to look into this.
I guess my last question, I think at one time we discussed the fact that it can become an addiction, and we were going to look at setting some of our money back to possibly look at, if we ever needed to, having money available to help with that kind of a situation.
Yeah,
Did I just dream that?
well,
Did we have that discussion?
we've talked about the addiction of gambling, but I don't believe that the council has ever set money aside specifically for that. I know when we increased the terminal fees from $25 to $250 because the state allowed that, I believe, Mr. Conzo, we put that into roads, correct? Streets and alleys. So I don't know if I can't recall if there was an ordinance put in place that was very specific about where video gaming tax was put in. Actually, video gaming was implemented before my time up here. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to address Alderman Rolfe's question, I don't know that there's been studies done specifically on why, some places will support more terminals than others, but I can tell you from experience with the lottery, a lot of times it's not just the population, it's the travel, and I think probably applies with this. For example, you have Effingham on there with 207. Well, Effingham has 2 interstate highways that cross there, 2 U.S. highways, 45 and 40, and a state highway. So there's a lot of traffic through there, and I think we have some of that too. I think Route 10, although it's not an interstate, it carries a lot of traffic, and of course the I-55 and carries a lot of traffic too. So I think that contributes. I mean, that creates a greater market for it than just the population base. If that helps.
Ms. McClellan.
I just wanted to say thank you. There are a lot of people who are really going to appreciate this. I think it's going to bring some hope back to the community that things can turn around a little bit and make our main thoroughfare a little more beautiful. Let's put it that way. So thank you very much for that, for taking the lead on that. And I would just like to say I'd love to see it get down to 150. I know you mentioned that too. I know it also is it's attrition. We have to wait for somebody to leave, so we couldn't get 150 in a year anyway.
Right.
But maybe we could revisit this again at some time, maybe, and get down to 150. And I think that would bring a lot of hope to people who have been really concerned about it.
Yeah, and to your point, one of the things that we're aware of on the Liquor Commission is that we don't have a lot, but we do have some individual businesses who they applied for the licenses, they got the licenses, and they've been approved, but they're sitting on them. So this happened with another location when it automatically opened the doors and went online, and I got a call from someone. They go, "You went against your word, and you said you weren't assigning anymore." Those licenses were actually signed before I took that stance. So they're actually paying these fees 2 and 3 years at a time just to keep the licenses because they know that we're not issuing any more. Yeah, I think, well, I don't want to call out anybody in particular, but I think that's our next step, is to go to those individuals and say, if you haven't implemented them in a specified period of time, then please come back later and apply. But I think that's a conversation for the council at a later time. We've got to look into the legalities of that and things of that nature. Mr. Parrott and then Mr. Downs.
Thank you. Like yourself, I was not here when it was initiated, having the video gaming, but I was here during a time when there were more stipulations on how a business could maintain them. I did like that, and there were others that did not, and I think it was the Liquor Commission that came forward. And during that time, also, we had a limited number of alcohol licenses,
Correct.
as well. And part of that idea, I guess, and I don't know how many we have now, how many bars and establishments that we have. I don't know if that number went up when we got rid of the stipulations for having the video gaming. But it looks like, just quick numbers, it would be around 32 businesses that would have these different video gaming, if they all had 6 and 10.
That's
The 2 10s, and then
probably close.
that's quite a few facilities across the town of 14,000 people.
So, Mayor, if I may,
Yep, Mr. Hoblet.
naturally, due to the video gaming, it would go up. So at the time, the video gaming, I believe it was about 2020, I believe, or so, when it was not that long ago, when video gaming proper became legal and these machines were implemented into the bars. In order to get those machines, you have to have a liquor license. So you had, and it's a Class B liquor license with gaming that we have. So you would have entities that did not have a liquor license of that nature previously applying to get one. So I do not know how many of them are overlaps, so to speak. Let's say, for example, like the IGA, they got the games. They had a package, but then in order to get the gaming, they would have to get the Class B with the gaming. So There have been other entities that have come forth, businesses that have opened, that probably do very limited alcohol sales, but in order to get that license, the gaming license, they have to have a liquor license. So it just naturally, it would be due to the advent of video gaming
Well,
and how many terminals we have, it would, yes, go up. There'd be a lot more.
There's 34 businesses
34.
in the May report and 200 terminals.
Right. Yeah. But we've had bars owners come in and sit right here and say, we would not survive, we would not be in business if it wasn't for the gaming aspect of it. And I think, as a city, I think we don't want gaming as a business, right? And they're in here and they said that they're basically their business is gaming, and they sell alcohol. So I think that's what we, as a city, I think we'd like to try to get away from, is like gambling establishments. But this is supposed to have been a secondary income, not a primary income. And if we can get back to that, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Mr. Downs, do you have questions before I move on? I didn't want to overlook you.
I was gonna ask, are we maxed out on our terminal fee per machine?
Yes.
We can't go up ever?
No, we used to only charge $25 per terminal, and then the state about a year and a half ago,
Yeah, I remember
they opened that up to $250, and that was the evening that we had some bar owners come in and speak with us about how it would hurt them, and then later learned that the companies that provide the terminals split the cost with them, so it offsets some of that for them.
Okay, thank you.
So Donahue.
Do we know how many people have the license for it that don't have gaming yet? Do we know how many of those are outstanding?
I believe I know of one for sure that has held on to those licenses as far back as 2020. They've held on to them that long. 4 years. Yeah. Well, they were that individual business actually built on an attached. Well, it was part of their building. They remodeled their building to allow for the gaming terminals, and it was back during the time when we had a city administrator. So that would have been 2020, 2021. So it's that far back, and they're paying every year to keep those 6 terminals. Haven't spoke with them. I'm not sure why they haven't moved forward. But those terminals are on this report for Illinois Gaming Board. So one for sure, perhaps a second one. The other one that held on to them for a period of time was the business down on Keokuk, the new Lincoln Liquors with the laundromat and that. They held on to their terminals for quite a while, but they did activate them once they opened up the business.
So did the old video store.
That was, I think it's called Kay's Place.
That
Yeah.
one they held on for, because I was one of the people that called you immediately and found out that there was somebody who held on to their license for almost 2 years before they opened.
Yep. So, and again, we're not trying to punish businesses that are, owners of terminals and have them in their businesses. I think the stance, and I can't speak for everybody, I'll just speak for myself. Mr. Eimer's on the Liquor Commission, Mr. Hoblett's not a voting member, but he is, they can speak for themselves. But I think what we're trying to say is we welcome your business, but we would like to see it be in a little bit more healthy state. Also, I have received calls, and I think maybe I've even talked about it on this floor. I had a friend, well, I have a friend, he's still my friend, but hasn't been in Lincoln for a long time. Some of you may know him, I'm not going to use his name, but he was traveling through Lincoln on his way to Germany for a military assignment, and I haven't talked to him in over 20 years. This is what he called me about. He called about driving down Woodlawn. He called it mini Vegas. He goes, I love Lincoln. It's where my roots are. But why are there so many video gaming terminals and flags and signs on Woodlawn? It looks bad. Those were his words, not mine. Although I agree. Mr. Bateman.
So I agree with this motion to move forward in lowering the license because it would be more attrition. We may not, any of these councils sitting here, see it get down to 175, but at least we can codify a number so other future councils can get it. But for myself, and I mentioned this to Mr. Welch and others, when this topic comes up, when we're out and about, visiting with constituents, some of these businesses brought this on themselves. If it's not the business, then it's the gaming company that, don't know if it forced them or whatever, but the signs and the billboards and that's what brought this forward. If they could have quietly done it in the corner somewhere, we may not be having this conversation. But man, I get more complaints about that than anything. It just turned it into the Vegas Strip. You can't drive down Woodlawn Road without going 2 blocks without seeing a flag or a sign or a window covering or whatever. I'm sure some of you drive by and wonder what kind of restaurant it is because you're trying to figure out what you're going to go in there and eat because they got slots or 777s or whatever. So I agree with this move. I was one of the people sitting in the back of the room at the time that brought up the strong will survive. I was wrong. If we didn't do this and the mayor didn't take that stance, we'd be at 300 terminals in a heartbeat. So it's a little ridiculous, and I applaud him for taking that step.
That is the truth. I get contacted all the time, and I know the clerk's office does, about video gaming. The number could have been much, much higher. I think 300 is probably an accurate guesstimate.
And part of that is the state's fault. I'm not going to sit here and name the terminal places. Most of them have names that, are female names. There's no Big Bubbas in town or anything. But, they don't sell a bunch of alcohol. They don't sell a bunch of frozen pizzas. But as long as they got that liquor, they come in to get a liquor license just to get a gaming license. So, as Steve said, that is their business model, gaming, not liquor. It's gaming.
Well, and there's another aspect to this. I've learned a lot about video gaming over the years. And I didn't know this until maybe the last year, but it's apparently big business for these big corporations to take these smaller video gaming parlors and put them in communities throughout Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, whatever, because the goal is to build up the number of smaller businesses they have under their umbrella and then sell it off to someone else as a marketable company. And so we are the ones in our community that have to deal with that while they're trying to grow their business. And here's the question. And I have a lot of friends that are employed at these places, and I know some of them. I could pick up the phone and call them now. But it is not about the employees, and we don't want to hurt employees. But in the same breath, I think it's hurting our community more than it's helping. And we don't want to shut businesses down, but we certainly don't want to continue on the path that we've been. And if we can put a limit in place and get it to 175, I think that the council will see how fast we get to that number. Mr. Downs?
How many liquor licenses do we have, like Class B or whatever, the bars?
I don't have that number ahead of me. I mean, every one of these establishments on here has to have a Class B, and there's 34 on this list just for gaming.
Yeah, but there's a lot of bars that, well, I don't go out to too many bars anymore, but there's some bars that don't have gaming, right?
There are some bars who have
Most of
chosen
them
not to.
do, but so okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I need.
We're not
I'm-
going to take their games away.
No, I know that, but if we're looking to limit one vice, maybe we should look at limiting others too. I mean.
Well, we can tackle the other ones at a later
Well, that's a
time.
later question.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that we're coming after everybody. And we're not even coming after the video gaming people. But I mean, I think we've been patient. I've sat in this room. I forgot who was in here with me. Were you in here when we had a meeting with the video gaming terminal companies? It was either David or Sam.
I was here.
It was both of you. So if you gentlemen remember, and for the council's benefit, one of the conversations was, to Mr. Bateman's point, the flags are getting obnoxious. They are one of the things that draws attention to this mostly. And they sat right here and they told us, they said, well, we've worked with other communities where we've addressed that topic and helped them put ordinances in place. And I said, that's great. Reach out. I'd love to talk with you. That was how many months ago? 12 months ago? So to protect their industry, they didn't take the step to come talk to us either. And I think it's just time that we start looking out for the community. We've got a lot of economic growth going, despite what people may think. And yes, we've had some significant losses, but our economic engine is in a good spot. And it's because of the hard work of the council, our partners in economic development, Andrea Runge, Lead, Eric Burwell, a number of people. And I don't want to see that growth hindered by other things. And I guess that's all I'll say about it. Mr. Conzo.
I know the signs are kind of obnoxious. Has anyone given any thought to, rather than limiting the number of terminals, changing the sign code to make the signs go away, for lack of a better way to put it?
I mean, yes. You've been here longer than I have. How many discussions have you had about signs?
Many over the years, and
See?
Alderman Rolfs was here before I was. She chaired that committee years ago and spent a lot of time on it. I believe you chaired it, didn't you? As I
Yes,
recall. And-
yes.
And they could never come to agreement on it, but that was before there were these feather
Other
signs or whatever.
Yeah, but we had this discussion maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
And that topic tends to stall out because we get into other things like property ownership and what do we have the right to tell you to do. Granted, we could put some ordinances in place and things of that nature, but the councils in the past have chose not to exercise any further restrictions on that. So, Sam, did you want to say something before we move on?
I was just gonna say, I know that we took action some time ago to address the signs, and I think it's gotten a lot better. I think the tall sign, yes, it absolutely has. It has gotten
No.
so much better.
Not the
It's not
ones,
perfect,
not the
but-
ones in the city right of way. Drive down Lincoln and see now how many signs are in the city right of way.
That's exactly what we did. I thought was told them.
Well, a lot of it has to
Signs
do
in the
with the
city right
prison
away.
right now.
Right now,
Most of them are the city.
you're correct. Yeah, right now, we have the Save Logan signs
Yeah.
that have been placed throughout the community. Mr. Landers will tell you the state came in and confiscated a bunch of them and then returned them back to their owners. But my position on it as the mayor, and I'm sure you can each share your own position, is that's a fight that we have to stand with them and fight. And if that's how if we're flexible on our sign ordinance for that period of time that we need to, and that's one way that we help them, we should. It's not a long-term solution, that's for sure. And that's why we also, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but that's why we need to get some answers on Logan. Not just signs, but we need some answers from the governor.
There's signs out there advertising an event that happened in June.
Well,
And I agree with you. You know, we have a economic development situation going on with the correctional centers. And some leniency is a good public relations for the people that we don't want to lose jobs. Unfortunately, what happens, you give them leniency and you've got everybody else that feels that they need to put their signs in there too, because after all, we've got these new signs, so it must be okay. Then
I
it's not
know.
okay.
And that's, yes, you put it nicely. We need to be mindful of everything.
Yeah.
But, we do have yard signs for garage sales and events that have taken place that never got took down. And, I think that's where Mr. Landers and his crew can can pull those, and hopefully we can get some resolution to the Save Logan situation, and we're successful in convincing the governor to keep Logan here, and the signs go away, right? So, Mr. Parrott.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just real quick, I feel like Walt and his crew should not have to do that. We gave allowance for these entities to do it, and if they don't come pick them up, then next year they don't get to put them out. And that's hard to keep track of, I know. But yeah, I don't like that you guys have to do that, necessarily. And I know that we're trying to hire a code enforcement officer as well that could go out and help with, doing that type of work to enforce, our code. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Probably as you as well.
Okay, so, Mr. Conzo, did you have something?
I was just gonna say,
You look like you wanted to say something.
I did, but, and I've said this before, keep in mind this is a substantial revenue stream for the city. And we've already, for the last several years, haven't done anything to increase the property taxes even, to adjust for inflation, even the smallest amounts. We're also going to lose sales tax revenue due to the governor's move to eliminate the tax, that 1% tax on groceries, which he says is going to save everybody hundreds of dollars. Well, if you spend $52,000 a year on groceries, you're going to save about $260. So the individual family, and I don't know, most people probably don't spend $52,000 a year on groceries. So I don't know that that it's going to save people any money, but it's going to cost us. It's going to cost the city money. So you've got these two revenue streams that are either declining or static, and you might want to think about how far you go in limiting this one and others.
Well, Mr. Hoblet.
Just to comment real quickly, and then I'll be coming back to the council for this on a later date, but you can, by ordinance, at least a portion of that tax that needs to be in place. I'll probably have something for the council before October, because we would need to have it passed and pushed through. So come January 1st.
Is this for the grocery tax?
Yeah, just like FYI, it's off topic, but you brought it up. I just want to make sure that there is ways to remediate that, at least a portion of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think you bring up good points, Mr. Gonzo. I think that's why the council needs to work together moving forward to make sure that we're making good, responsible decisions. But you have to ask yourself what you're willing to trade and give up in exchange for that revenue. There's a trade-off for everything. And I think that the 175 going down to that it's a responsible measure, and we can start to monitor our revenue streams over time as we do that. I mean, it would have been great if we could have looked at our video gaming revenue streams and actually put numbers to them to see how many terminals were in place at which periods of revenue. Yeah, so that'd be an interesting perspective. Okay, but for now, how does the council feel about this? Okay. Thank you for the lengthy discussion on it. I appreciate it. Okay, we'll place it on the regular agenda.
Well,
Mr. Gonzo.
One point of clarification regarding the appropriation ordinance, and I did not mention this, but what we would do, that's going to be available for public inspection Wednesday, and there will be notice in the Courier stating that, and it needs to be available for public inspection 10 days prior to the public hearing and passage of it. So it would necessitate a special voting meeting on presumably on the night of the 23rd, which is a regular committee of the whole meeting. And public hearing would also occur prior to that special voting meeting. Other than that, the committee of the whole meeting could be held first if you wanted to do it that way.
I'm open to however you'd like to do it.
You don't have to determine that now, but it would have to be on that night.
Do the public
Well,
hearing.
the public hearing would have to precede the special voting meeting, but the committee of the whole meeting.
So special voting
precede
meeting,
it.
public hearing, committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole could be on either side of that, but
We'll just put it in the end. Because topics may come up that may take longer. So
Because we don't know.
we
what
wouldn't want somebody coming forward for the public hearing, sitting and waiting the whole time. So, okay. Good. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, that brings us down to announcements. I got a couple and then I'll open it up to the floor. First one, I'd like to thank Mr. Landers and his crew for this weekend. As many of you know, the beams are coming down across the street off the courthouse. So we're having to be very flexible and work with our partners at the county. They had a crane that was on Mount Pulaski Street. It was parked there overnight. This was Friday evening. And the road got a little narrow and cars were trying to go both ways on it. And a vehicle happened to hit the platform that the crane was sat on. Other than a couple blown tires, it did not cause damage to the car itself. And the county, the project manager was gracious enough to say they'll take responsibility on that. But I called Walt and he called the next person on the list. They brought out some one-way signs, closed the road to make sure it was safe for people that were passing through there. So thanks for doing that after hours. You came down also and took some photos for our record and everything. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. And thank your crew as well. The second announcement is not necessarily Lincoln, but Lincoln rooted. The Central Illinois Veterans Commission has started build of their 6th and 7th tiny home for veterans. So we have 5 in the city of Lincoln. That organization is actually starting to get a lot of publicity and it's expanding. So because it's the Central Illinois Veterans Commission, not just Lincoln, they have been working, the chairman of the board and others, Mr. Shaler was heavily involved in this, has got some lots up in Atlanta. So they're starting number 6 and 7. And if anybody would like to help with that, they are asking for volunteers to come out and swing a hammer and help put walls up. And I think maybe they're going to try to get the roofs up this Saturday. And I think they start at 8 o'clock. So if you're able, you're interested, would love to join you. I'll be out there for a while too. And then, but that reminds me, we have a ribbon cut coming up on Saturday as well, right? 9:45, and that is, what's the name of it? The Barn Boutique. It's on 5th Street across from the Casey's, where the flower shop used to be. Yeah. So if you're free and available, I know they'd love to have the council come out and support their ribbon cut and grand opening. Okay, I have nothing else. Mr. Hoblet.
So, if the council is aware, I'm sure you all are. We did an assignment of interest from Integrity Holdings to another LLC. Okay. We were operating under the assumption, and I guess it's the age-old saying that assumptions, when you make an assumption, what it ultimately results. Turns out the company will be operating on a different LLC. Okay. Hometown Redevelopment LLC. So therefore, same people. So therefore, to that extent, we would either need to amend or vote to undo what we did previously and do a new assignment to the proper LLC name. To that extent, I'm asking that a item be added to the agenda, either reflecting either. I'll probably tell Ms. Bateman as to which one we're probably going to go with for the upcoming voting meeting on Monday. I spoke to the attorney involved in this regard to this and verified that's what it is. I didn't get cued into it until we exchanged contracts, and their contract had a different LLC name than the one I thought we were using. So we will need to make that change.
So this doesn't go down a 3-week rabbit hole. Can we just add it to next week's voting agenda
Yeah,
that we're
that's-
changing the name?
Yes.
Yep,
Okay.
that's what I'm requesting.
Well, when you said amend, I was envisioning that would have to go on the next cow to vote to amend it, and then the next voting session.
Yep.
Nope. This is your opportunity to put it on the agenda. So, regular agenda?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, other announcements? Anybody? Mr. Conzo, do you have?
Okay, as you know, we did, you did pass an ordinance to allow the city to issue bonds for the Fifth Street Road project. The bond council does what's called a BINA hearing, which has as a public hearing, and they have to publish a notice for that in order to proceed with the next steps of it. Well, they did, but they didn't run it by, I mean, we knew they were gonna set it up for the 15th, but they did not send us a proof of what they were gonna run in the Courier and what they did run in the Courier. Unfortunately, they were still under the assumption, because we'd always had our meetings at 7 o'clock, they were under the assumption that this would be at 7 o'clock as well. So the public notice, if you read your Courier, the public notice says that the BINA hearing will be at 7 o'clock on the 15th. And I know your regular meeting is scheduled for 6, so that the hearing would necessarily follow that that hearing. The regular meeting would precede the public hearing instead of the other way around. I don't know if the regular meeting is going to last an hour. It wouldn't appear that way based on the agenda as it is at this point in time. So it's likely you're going to have a somewhat of a gap in time between the end of the regular voting meeting and the BINA hearing.
I think it's, since you're in charge of this, that you should volunteer to bring in pizza.
Perhaps
Share with the council between.
I'd rather have shrimp.
you'd rather have shrimp. I don't know where we'll find
The
that.
one thing I don't eat.
Oh, I do. You know, the donuts,
E-
Mellow
e-
Cream's
e-
open.
Either
so
way,
we can
we
get
could have a
those.
potluck.
Box of a couple dozen.
Okay, so, in light of this, which I wasn't aware of until now, what, is the council amenable to meeting at 7 o'clock next week instead of 6? Huh? Can we not be flexible on that? So everybody's gonna sit here for an hour then? That'll take 5 minutes.
Yeah, we can drag it.
Have we never amended the time of a meeting in the past?
We have.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we absolutely have.
Moved it to earlier.
Yeah, we have amended to, like, say, if it was at 7, it would be like 7:05.
Okay, so
or
let's
not.
do this then. I do believe by code, the mayor has the right to call a special meeting. Then let's call it a special meeting.
Okay. I mean, it seems a bit odd. I mean, you got all looking at me. I guess you can have a special meeting or just have your regular
wait,
meeting
well,
at the
hold on a
regular
minute.
time.
Hold on a minute. Who scheduled this?
Bond council, well, Ice Miller, it's now a different name, but it's the same bond council we've used for years.
Okay,
But they didn't, they were going on the assumption, of course, that it was 7 o'clock
correct.
because it's been 7 o'clock for generations.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. So, by the Open Meetings Act, I believe that they're required to give 48 hours notice.
It's already been published.
No, our meeting.
Oh, but they're saying,
Move our meeting to 6:30.
I was trying to go at it from the other way where they could reschedule theirs, but they must have a publishing requirement.
Yes, they
No,
do.
I'm saying we move our meeting to 6:30. There wouldn't be such a big gap.
I mean, you guys can do
It
what you want.
sound-
I mean, the
but
city
it's-
code says what it does. You guys can move it as you see fit. I doubt the populace is going to bring in an uproar for a movement of a meeting. So
Move our meeting to 6:30.
I think as long as we publish it the way we need to and put the proper time on it that we agree to, then we should be okay. So you want to do 6:30? Okay, so is everybody, department heads, you guys, this will impact you
Next week, is that what you're 15th.
the 15th? Yeah, are you okay on 6:30?
Yeah.
Gentlemen? Are you okay, 6:30? Okay, so we will adjust the time to start at 6:30 for our regular council meeting on the 15th. Okay. Any other bombshells? Oh, I mean announcements.
Hey, the good news is there'll be people show up at 6. They won't be late.
It's okay. It's all recorded. Okay. Anybody else have an announcement they'd like to share? Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the Lincoln Art Institute for painting that eyesore down at Latham Park, which is that tunnel that turned into a giant watermelon. So
Oh, yeah, it does look really nice. So, yep. Okay. If there is no other announcements, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Alderman Downs made the motion. Alderwoman O'Donohue second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:01 p.m.